You're walking through the woods on a cold February morning in 1957. The bare branches creak overhead as your footsteps crunch through the frost-covered undergrowth. Then you see it. A large cardboard box, discarded among the trees like unwanted trash. But as you peer closer, your blood turns to ice. Inside lies the naked body of a small boy, his dark hair neatly trimmed, his tiny hands folded as if in prayer. His eyes stare sightlessly at the gray Philadelphia sky, and you realize you've stumbled upon a mystery that will haunt America for over 60 years. This is the story of the boy in the box, where an innocent child's death became America's most enduring, unsolved mystery. The discovery came on February 25, 1957, in the wooded area of Fox Chase, a quiet neighborhood in northeast Philadelphia. A young man checking his muskrat traps noticed something that didn't belong among the winter bare trees. A J.C. bassinet box, soggy from recent rains and partially hidden beneath the skeletal branches. What he found inside would shake him to his core and launch one of the most intensive missing person investigations in American history. The boy appeared to be between 4 and 6 years old, weighing just 30 pounds. His small body bore the telltale signs of severe malnourishment, his ribs visible beneath pale skin. But it wasn't neglect alone that had claimed this child's life. Bruises and scars covered his fragile frame, telling a story of prolonged abuse that made even seasoned investigators sick to their stomachs. Someone had taken great care with the boy's appearance after death. His fingernails were cleanly trimmed, his brown hair freshly cut in a style that suggested a woman's careful hand. He had been bathed, his body wrapped in a blanket, before being placed in the box like some macabre gift. The contradictions were haunting. Such tenderness in death, yet such cruelty in life. Detective Samuel Weinstein arrived at the scene that gray morning, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air as he surveyed what would become his life's most consuming case. The Philadelphia Police Department had seen their share of horrors, but this was different. This was a child, alone and anonymous, with no one to claim him and no one to mourn him. The bassinet box itself provided the first clues. J.C. records showed it had been sold in the Philadelphia area, but thousands had been purchased. More intriguing was what surrounded the makeshift grave: a man's cap and a child's scarf, both discarded nearby as if in haste or panic. As news of the discovery spread through the city, tips began pouring into police headquarters. Everyone, it seemed, had a theory about who this boy might be. Some reported missing children from years past. Others claimed to have seen suspicious activity in the Fox Chase area. But each lead dissolved under scrutiny, leaving investigators grasping at shadows. The coroner's examination revealed more disturbing details. The boy had died from multiple blunt force trauma injuries to his head. His stomach was empty except for a few partially digested lima beans, perhaps his last meal. Most heartbreaking of all, evidence suggested he had been alive for several days, maybe even weeks, after sustaining his injuries. Someone had kept this dying child watching him suffer, before finally discarding his small body like refuse. Dr. Joseph Spellman, the city's chief medical examiner, made a decision that would define the case for decades to come. Instead of a pauper's burial, the boy would be embalmed and preserved, waiting for the day someone would claim him. The funeral director donated a small white casket, and the boy was laid to rest in Potter's Field, with a simple marker reading, "Heavenly Father, bless this unknown boy." But even in death, he would not rest in peace. The case consumed Detective Weinstein and his team, becoming an obsession that would span their entire careers. They had found a victim, but finding his killer, or even his identity, would prove to be an almost impossible task. The boy in the box had entered Philadelphia's consciousness, and he would haunt the city for generations to come. In the weeks following the discovery, Philadelphia police launched the largest missing persons investigation in the city's history. Detective Weinstein and his team distributed 400,000 flyers bearing the boy's photograph throughout the Delaware Valley. They canvassed neighborhoods, visited schools, and questioned anyone who might have information about a missing child matching the boy's description. The response was overwhelming, but ultimately heartbreaking. Hundreds of families came forward, desperate to identify the boy as their own missing child. Each identification attempt ended in disappointment, as parents looked upon the small face and realized this wasn't their lost son. The boy remained nameless, a ghost in the machine of a city searching for answers. Meanwhile, the investigation took on an almost supernatural quality. Psychics arrived from across the country, claiming to have visions about the boy's identity and death. One medium insisted the child's name was Jonathan, another that he had been killed by his stepmother. The police, desperate for any lead, followed even the most outlandish claims, but each psychic revelation led nowhere. The case attracted national attention when photographs of the boy appeared in newspapers across America. His haunting image, those dark eyes and neatly trimmed hair, became seared into the public consciousness. Tips poured in from as far away as California and Florida, but each promising lead crumbled under investigation. As months stretched into years, theories began to emerge about the boy's origins. Some investigators believed he had been the victim of a foster care situation gone horribly wrong. Others suspected he might have been the child of recent immigrants who feared coming forward due to their legal status. The most chilling theory suggested he had been held captive for years, explaining his malnourished state and the evidence of prolonged abuse. In 1960, 3 years after the discovery, the case took a dramatic turn when a young woman named Mary came forward with a shocking story. She claimed to have been present when the boy was murdered, identifying him as Jonathan and describing a horrific scene of abuse at the hands of her adoptive family. According to Mary, the boy had been purchased from his birth parents and subjected to months of torture before his death. Mary's account was detailed and disturbing. She described how the boy had been kept in the basement of a house, fed nothing but lima beans, and beaten regularly by the woman she called Mother. She claimed to have watched as the boy was struck in the head during a bath, his small body going limp in the water. In a panic, Mary said, the family had dressed his body, placed him in the bassinet box, and dumped him in the Fox Chase woods. For investigators, Mary's story felt like the breakthrough they had been waiting for. The details aligned with the physical evidence: the lima beans, the signs of prolonged abuse, the careful grooming after death. But as detectives dug deeper into Mary's background, her credibility began to unravel. She had a history of mental illness and had made similar claims about other high-profile cases. Polygraph tests proved inconclusive, and without corroborating evidence, authorities couldn't move forward with her account. The decades passed, and the boy in the box became Philadelphia folklore. New detectives took over the case as the original investigators retired or passed away. Detective Weinstein never stopped thinking about the boy, carrying the case file with him, even after leaving the force. On his deathbed, he reportedly still spoke about the child he had never been able to identify. In the 1990s, advances in forensic science offered new hope. DNA testing became available, and the boy's remains were exhumed for genetic analysis. For the first time, investigators had a scientific tool that might unlock the mystery. But the DNA profile, while successfully extracted, matched no one in the available databases. The boy remained as anonymous as the day he was found. The case experienced a renaissance in the internet age. Amateur investigators and true crime enthusiasts created websites dedicated to solving the mystery. Online forums buzzed with theories and speculation. Some claimed to have identified the boy through genealogical research, while others presented elaborate conspiracy theories involving organized crime or government cover-ups. One of the most persistent theories centered around a woman named Martha, who claimed the boy was her brother. She provided detailed accounts of their shared childhood in an abusive household, describing a mentally ill mother who tortured her children. Martha's story gained traction online, but, like Mary's account decades earlier, it couldn't be substantiated with concrete evidence. As the 50th anniversary of the discovery approached in 2007, Philadelphia police made a final push to solve the case. They released age-enhanced photographs showing what the boy might have looked like in life, hoping to trigger someone's memory. The plea generated renewed media attention and hundreds of new tips, but still, no resolution. The boy had become more than a cold case. He had become a symbol of all the forgotten children, the lost souls who disappear without a trace. His story touched something deep in the collective psyche, a reminder that even in death, some mysteries refuse to be solved. After more than 6 decades of silence, the breakthrough finally came in December 2022. Philadelphia police, working with genetic genealogists and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, announced they had identified the boy in the box using advanced DNA technology and extensive family tree analysis. His name was Joseph Augustus Zarelli. The identification process had taken months of painstaking work. Investigators used genetic genealogy, the same technique that had helped solve other cold cases like the Golden State Killer, to build family trees from DNA profiles found in genealogy databases. Slowly, they narrowed down the possibilities until they found a match that led them to Joseph. Joseph had been born on January 13, 1953, making him 4 years old when he died. His parents were Catherine and Joseph Zarelli Sr., and he had several siblings. The family lived in West Philadelphia, not far from where his body was discovered. Records showed the family had been struggling with poverty and instability, but the exact circumstances that led to Joseph's death remained unclear. The revelation brought both closure and new questions. While investigators finally had a name for the boy who had haunted Philadelphia for so long, many mysteries remained unsolved. Who killed Joseph? Was it someone within his own family, or had he fallen victim to strangers? Why had no one reported him missing? The investigation into his murder continued, but with most potential witnesses and suspects now deceased, the chances of bringing anyone to justice appeared slim. For Detective Weinstein's descendants and the other investigators who had worked the case over the decades, the identification brought a bittersweet sense of resolution. The boy finally had his name back, finally had his identity restored. Joseph Augustus Zarelli was no longer just a victim. He was a person with a history, a family, a place in the world. The announcement sparked a mixture of satisfaction and sorrow throughout Philadelphia. Citizens who had grown up hearing about the boy in the box felt a strange sense of loss, as if an old mystery friend had suddenly become real and distant. The case had become part of the city's DNA, and now that chapter was finally closing. Plans were made to update Joseph's grave marker with his real name, replacing the anonymous inscription that had marked his resting place for over 60 years. The simple white headstone would finally tell the truth. Here lies Joseph Augustus Zarelli, a little boy who died too young but was never forgotten. The identification, also highlighted the remarkable advances in forensic science and the power of genetic genealogy to solve seemingly impossible cases. Joseph's story became a testament to the persistence of investigators and the importance of never giving up on the forgotten victims. After more than 60 years, the boy in the box was no longer just a case number or a mystery. He was Joseph, and the world finally knew his name. In that cardboard box in the Philadelphia woods, what investigators found wasn't just a victim. They found a mirror reflecting our deepest fears about childhood vulnerability and society's failures. Joseph Augustus Zarelli waited more than 60 years to have his name spoken aloud again, to be remembered as more than just evidence in a file. His story reminds us that behind every unsolved mystery is a real person whose life mattered, whose death demands justice, and whose memory deserves more than just being forgotten in the shadows of time. This was The Boy in the Box,